Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
Official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Joining me today is Billy Dass, the Indie Dork.
What's up, everybody?
And I, of course, am Brad Gullickson, the Mouth Dork. And we have such a rad conversation for you. I feel like we've been saying that a lot lately because guess what? We've had a ton of rad conversations.
They've all been rad.
My
mind is blown.
I hope you have listened to our interviews with Don Coscarelli, Stephen Tobolowsky, and David Chen of late. But today, we are here in the Alamo Drafthouse Winchester projection booth to talk to Jim Cummings and Ben Wiesner. Jim Cummings is the writer, director, performer, the star of Thunder Road, and Ben is his producer. I think, and I hope, you have been paying attention to what we have been dishing on our podcast and on our Facebook and on our Twitter feed. But if you have not, you should know that Thunder Road is easily one of the best films of the year, one of my favorite films of this year and previous years. I freaking love this movie.
It's a masterpiece. I cannot believe how good it is. It blew me away.
And we start this conversation being very honest with both of them and saying, look, we are fanboys, and it is an unbelievably surreal experience to talk to the filmmakers responsible of a film that profoundly affected us both.
I think that's been the most rewarding thing about the Chatcast process in general, has been the ability to see and connect with something very profoundly and then have the opportunity to talk to the people who produce those things and really basically just to express how undying my affection is for this thing that they brought into the world. Like, it's a really selfish experience, but...
And I'm really proud of this conversation that's coming forward. It's fairly in-depth. We are doing it over the course of a lunch. So at some point in the conversation, you will hear food and beer and Bloody Marys and hard cider being delivered to us. Andy Geyerson, the film programmer at the Alamo Winchester, joins us and contributes greatly to this conversation. I would encourage you to watch the film first if you can. We get pretty specific with a few plot points, and if you want to go into the experience totally pure, you might have a few elements spoiled for you.
So there are spoilers in it. But number one, I think the movie's showing.
Yeah, and it comes out on DVD on the 20th of October.
Right. So it's Blind by Good. You definitely should be seeking this out and procuring it. But if you're not spoiler averse, I dive into the conversation. This movie's profound. This movie, as I watched it a second time today, this movie is as profound the second time around as it is the first time. So you will not be missing anything from your experience.
We're not joking. Like, I really feel like Jim Cummings is a master. Is a genius.
It's hugely impressive. And you can hear it in the way that he answers the questions and engages.
He's going to go places.
For sure.
And I'm super excited for his career in the future.
Yeah.
You can go to his Vimeo account right now and watch his short films. You can see the short film that inspired Thunder Road. You can see the short film, The Robbery, which he also talks about in this conversation. So go check that out. But please, go watch Thunder Road. And then come on back and check out this conversation. It's it's a really rewarding chat.
Let's get into it.
All right, so without further ado, Jim Cummings and Ben Wiesner.
Okay.
And we are up in the projection booth of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester. Andy Geierson roaming through the background, as always. Today, we are so happy to be joined by the filmmakers behind Thunder Road, one of our favorite films of the year, without a doubt. Director, writer, star Jim Cummings, and producer Ben Wiesner. Thanks, guys, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
That's not bullshit.
Usually the interviews start with let me just kiss your ass a little bit so you guys feel gracious here. But this movie rocked our fucking world.
Yeah.
We loved it.
I did Fantastic Fest and Lost Weekend back to back. I watched 48 movies in a row. Wow. Thunder Road was easily my favorite film of that 48. It crushed me. So that's where I am. I want you to know that I'm a fanboy geek, and you're going to have to deal with my squee. But I thought where we could start is, the Thunder Road, the short film. It's basically the opening of Thunder Road, the film. One big difference being no Bruce Springsteen song. So when you decided to turn this into a feature, how did the opening of Thunder Road slightly shift from what you had filmed short film-wise?
Well, it was very difficult. First off, thank you. That was lovely. It was very difficult to get in touch with him to get the rights for the short film, for the song. And we wrote an alternate eulogy that didn't have the song in it, but we shot it both ways. We shot it just in case one of the takes worked better. With long takes, you never know. One of them has to be perfect, and whichever one is perfect, that's the one you go with. And in our case, the last take without the song that we shot that day was the 18th time we did it that day.
18.
That was the one that we wanted to use, and it just happened to not have the song in it.
It was a pack the trucks moment. That shot ended, and it was just that's 11 minutes of the movie. You could just tell right then.
Yeah. So when it came down to it, it wasn't even really a rights issue, and it just worked. With a short film, I mean, I'd done 10 short films before I made the feature, and I feel like I was working where it had to be viral, everything had to be contained, and so that's why in the short film the song plays and it's very fulfilling to watch. But then with a 90-minute duration, you can't have it be incredibly fulfilling in the beginning. The fulfillment should come at the end of the film, and it does. So this version is a much faster nosedive because the song doesn't play, and then he has to redeem himself by the end of the film, which he does. Mm-hmm. So structurally I felt like it worked narratively better to not have it, and for all of those reasons together, we said, we don't need it.
And monetarily wise, it was probably a good call too.
I think so. The producers were thrilled.
Bonus for sure.
Yeah. I love your Vimeo account. I love your short films. 10 short films, impressive. Why was Thunder Road the first one to go feature?
So we had people interested in doing something with the robbery and turning the robbery into a feature because it's kind of an action film. But it never came to fruition, and we always knew that we wanted to do something with this guy or something inside of this same tone. We're all from the South, and so we like telling these Southern family stories and real stories. And then I had the idea to set the feature where the short film is the opening of it instead of the climax. For a long time we said you couldn't do it. You couldn't turn Thunder Road short film into a feature because the rest of the movie leading up to the funeral would have to be him having a terrible relationship with his mom and then his mom passing away, and it just didn't nothing clicked for us. It was like, all right, well, that'd kind of be a sad movie and it wouldn't be very good. And then in setting the short film at the beginning, it became a story about redemption. It became this, you're thrown into this guy's life and his mindset, and then he has to crawl back into his family and try and get his daughter to like him again. And then when we made that decision, we realized we could do all this fun kind of like Mike Judge style family drama comedy, and it was working. And I wrote it in a couple of days in my friend's basement and sent the first draft out to Ben, friends and family, and it changed over a couple of months, but we were shooting it, before the end of the year. We shot it in November in Austin.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess going back to the short film and the origin of that story, where does this guy come from?
Austin, Texas. No. I don't know. We say that he's a much more pathetic version of me, or a much sadder version of me. I don't know. I feel like he's the kids we grew up with, the quarterbacks on the football team, or the lovable guy who's the wide receiver or whatever, who is just a kind of clueless dude who spends his life being a spectator of his own experience rather than making any decisions, and then he wakes up when he's 35 and says, "Oh God, I can't live in this town anymore. I gotta change it for my family." I don't know where he comes from. I think he's just a product of us wanting to make fun of a certain type of specific Southern dude, and then writing dialogue for that person. I think that's where he comes from.
And it's honestly not that far off of where we could have been as well. We're all products of Southern educations, and like this kind of like, I don't mean that in a school sort of way, but this way of being brought up and the expectations and everything that are placed on you. And so there are moments of this that are just very much like the edges of us. Yeah.
So where did you guys grow up?
I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. I live in Durham now.
I grew up in the Panhandle.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's like
I'm so sorry.
I grew up in Panama City, so like
it's a lot.
That's
now.
a super raw nerve. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was not expecting the conversation to segue that way. That's a weird thing.
No, it's on the front page of the newspaper this morning.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week.
Goodness.
So, anyways, I don't want to make the conversation about that though. We can talk about that.
No, I'm from New Orleans, man. I've been through that.
So you
shit.
know,
yeah,
dude.
That was my orientation week of
everything.
college. Yeah, evacuation, and then bringing wet clothes to Boston. Yeah.
And this character is somebody who's part of that kind of diaspora that happened after Katrina. This is a family that moved to Texas because they couldn't be in Louisiana anymore.
Well, it does, and I mean, like the culture of the South is pervasive. I mean, like you guys know that. Like it's widespread over a wide area, but like there are different experiences depending on where you are in the South and all that. But like I recognize that in the character. Like I recognize that thing that you guys are doing. It felt very organic and real to me as I was doing that. I think maybe that's why I connected with the movie so much watching that, is because I know that guy.
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah.
He's present.
Could have been him.
Yeah, it could have been that guy.
A spectator of his own life as opposed to an active participant.
And I also feel like there's something to like the like foot and mouth disorder of like when you see somebody struggle, you're like, oh, I've done that before, or like I've been that idiot, or I'm the only real autobiographical thing about the movie is that I am a divorcee, and there's that moment of him making the good joke about he's not wanting to see his wife get hit by a train, and it kills, and then in the next scene basically he has to crawl it back and be like, hey, I said that thing. I said that thing about you getting hit by a train, and it's funny, but that's like everybody feels
joke.
like that. Yeah, it was an off-colored joke. But everybody feels like that sometimes, saying the thing that they wish they hadn't said, and so you relate to him. Yeah, he is this like kind of oddly relatable, clumsy guy because we've all been there. Yeah.
Well, the miracle of the movie to me is
here we go.
Well, is what you're saying, how in the span of not a scene, but in the span of sentences, like in the span of one sentence, you have to go from a place where he's easily mockable, right, to pathetic, sad, hilarious comedy, back to melancholy. Like you, and I can't imagine it from a performance standpoint. Like I see this attempted a lot in comedy, dramedy.
Yep.
But rarely have I seen it so precise in your performance of shifting tones within that one sentence.
We talk a lot about hinges as these opportunities, like words in the middle of sentences, breaths, the performance, like all of the eye stuff, anything like that is really scripted. And it's these hinges that can kind of get you into the next place that you need to be emotionally, or with the joke, or with the that bit of emotion.
Yeah, I think like also just having grown up watching Armando Iannucci's work and like seeing what they do with comedy, where it is all performative. Like language is so complex. It's you can write it in screenplay format, but you just got to get on your feet and do it to actually find out, and like to find out what subtlety you can employ. Like there are moments where we write over the top dialogue for something, and then I'm like, no, this you can sell it to an audience from facial expressions. Like when I was writing the short film in the back pew, I like sit down with my daughter, and actually in one of the takes we shot it, and it was terrible, but I was like, hey, honey, I got to talk to you about something. And like that was the end of the film, was just this one line. And then I was like, no, if we just have him say nothing and then try and like connect with her through these like facial expressions, it's so much more powerful. And like it tells the entire conversation just from him moving his face a certain way. It was that was an education for us to be like, okay, cool, the audience will get it without having it be hitting them on the head.
So what's the construction of that look like? Because you're functioning as writer, performer, director. Are you gaming that out in your head as you think about how you're going to sell this as a performer, or are you relying on are you present to help style that out? Like how do you get to that from nothing? That's what's the creative process?
Yeah, part of it was like driving around looking for locations together for a month straight, and every place we're going, it's just running every single scene. He's just giving the performance over and over and over again, workshopping.
Yeah, and then also small stuff like, I think we can do this, or like, what do you think about this line, or like, what do you think? How do we make this function? And then there were times where we'd be location scouting, it'd be 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, all right, I think I've got the parking lot scene down, and then I'll just do it at half volume for people. And it's like Ben and Danny and the rest of the crew sitting on the cars before we leave the parking lot, and they're just like laughing, and then I have to stop because I'm laughing, and then like okay, so it's gonna be like that, but it's gonna be serious. That kind of rehearsal process where it is growing. It is like you can feel the roller coaster, but it's all performative. Like there are moments when the writing is literally me walking around a golf course in the middle of the night and just having the free space to walk and talk to myself and do it out loud 1,000 times. And then you find these small things. Like the John Wayne bit came about, me saying John Wayne came about because I was riding with Zach Parker, a producer, and he said, I grew up in Austin. If ever anything bad happened to me, I'd just John Wayne it. And I was like, he used it as a verb, like, I'm a tough guy here. And I was like, that's so good. Like, I gotta steal that instantly. And I put it in my voice, the notes app on my iPhone, and I started, I have this long list of like turns of phrase and things like that, idioms to fit into the film. And then it just works so well in the eulogy of in that one moment. Like, I have to say that. If I had known that expression for the short film, it would have been in there. And it's just a process of how much you can get the audience. Like I understand what's going to be funny, and I understand what's going to be endearing or poignant, and just finding that through dialogue. You know it when you're saying it out loud. It's very difficult to tell when it's in screenplay format, but you know it when it's working.
Well, so a lot of that relationship then is very visual for a final product. What's your relationship like with your cinematographers? You're trying to figure out how to capture the performance.
Really, really great. The cinematographer for this film is named Lowell A. Meyer, and he is really wonderful. And he shot, I think, 6 of our short films, maybe 7 of our short films beforehand, and is just a golden retriever of a human being, a really lovely guy. And it was probably a month of conversations of exactly how many shots we had. It was a 14-day shoot, so we had no
holy
shot.
Shit.
Yeah, we
tech scouts were a big part of that, and like really walking through what needs to happen for each moment, and getting that down all ahead of time. And then Lowell has this playbook of like where the lights go for everything and all of that, where you walk in and you're lighting the space within a minute.
Oh, Jesus. So we'll just say, so let's just, right now in the background, we're getting some drinks delivered, and I got a 32-ounce can of cider.
Lord, you're going to need help with that. I'll take a picture of that.
Yeah, here.
It's really cool.
Here, we'll put it next to my head.
We'll add this in the liner notes of the podcast, but good God, it is,
Yeah,
It's a flagon. It is an arsenal of beer that he is drinking. Yeah.
You know what's hilarious is Billy had one of those yesterday, so obviously he's become a fan
Look,
and
don't-
an addict.
I thought this was a safe space. I
I
didn't think
know,
we were
I
going
know.
to judge.
He's going to open it right now, and it's going to explode. Here we go.
Perfect.
That's a lovely sound.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
lovely sound.
God
effect.
bless the Alamo.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a shot list.
Not just a shot list, but like I think more important to us, like an approach of like how to light the room when you get into the room, because one of the things that we need to do for our schedule is just get production out of the way as much as possible, so that you just have time for performance.
Right.
So having that kind of like the plot of the room, a real idea of like how to hide the lights, because we shoot 360 in a lot of the spaces we're in. So
Yeah, it's a lot of long takes. And just having done that, like the robbery, our short film, it was the 360s. We had like a few hidden lights in certain moments, and we had to comp some of them out. But for the most part, it's just all around this one person. And having done that before, it was like, okay, well, cool. Now we're only going to see, a 180-degree version of this parking lot. And so, like, you guys could just stand behind the camera right here in this little wedge. Yeah, it's a nightmare, but it's
Well, that's
a lot of fun.
right? But I like that. It's a nightmare because like this is the dream, right? This was the goal forever. Short films meant to segue into feature film, and like this challenge that you've bit off for yourself for your first feature film. It's like, holy fuck, how did you pull this off? Because like acting, writing, the performance is legit, but then also as you're saying this, I'm thinking about all the long takes that you're talking about, and you work this into 14 days. Like, are you
14
broken?
and a half.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah,
No,
forget
that's-
it. Yeah.
18
Scratch
takes
that question.
on one scene, a pivotal scene.
For that funeral scene, I say 18. We started at 18 times, and we probably only got through it 12 times altogether. But there were moments where I'm there, and we've been doing it all day. So we started at like 5 in the morning, waited for the sun to come up, started shooting, and by the 12th take or something, I would go, nope, halfway through, and then just reset, and everybody would reset because I wasn't feeling it, or I wasn't crying, or it wasn't moving, or it wasn't as funny as the take that we had that's best. That's the other thing with long takes. If you're doing them and you get to lunch and you've already had 6 takes, you watch the best take that you've done so far, and then for the next takes that you're shooting, if it's not as good as that last one, if you know you're not going to use it compared to that last one, you can say cut and then say like, no, let's reset. It's a waste of time to continue doing this.
But in 14 days, when you're having that day and you've had lunch, you've looked at what you've done, you're not happy with it.
Yeah.
The stress level on like, well, I have to come away on this day with this scene.
Yeah, I mean that's every minute. Like every minute of every day is that of like, well, can we get this? Can we get this? Can we get this? And it's like, or like, do we need how many shots do we need of this? Or how? And then, but because I was a producer for years, and because I have my film team is my family, I'm very reasonable. I'm not Stanley Kubrick, and so if we get it, and I know that we got it, then it's like, okay, we don't need coverage. We don't need anything else. Let's pack up the parking lot and get the hell out of here. We got other stuff to shoot today.
Right. And now you have the luxury of seeing almost instantaneously what you've done.
Yeah, we usually don't. So like if it's a good take, we make sure. So if it's a long take and it's an important one, we'll watch it and then go, yeah, we got it, moving on, let's get out of here. But if we feel like we could have gotten it better, if one person of the team, if the cinematographer says, I could use another one, or like, the focus wasn't that great in this one shot, or like, if I was like, I can do it better, or for any reason, if any member of the team says, we should do it again, we do it again. But if we're all happy with the thing that we got, we move on.
One of the other advantages that we really had with this film was we had an on-set editor, Brian Vanucci, who was down there, and he was cutting the project the whole time. So by the time we got to like day 12, we could watch 85% of the film together.
Shit.
Yeah.
So like we had that back end
How
of
handy.
day 13 and 14 where we had a little wiggle room in this schedule so that we could go, actually we need an extra like 10-second space here. We need this like shot, not so people make sense of it, but because of how fast everything is and how much you're running, that we were able to find some of the holes for the audience and give them like more room to breathe and all of that.
Yeah. That's
Go ahead.
And well, so obviously you have to have tremendous prep. It sounds like you took a long time before you rolled on it.
Yeah. Oh, it's 1,000 times
Yeah.
for these long takes. You have to rehearse them, not like 1,000 times, legitimately, and that's the writing process as well. But by the time I get to set, I know everybody's lines. I know everybody does. I record it as a podcast before the film goes. Yeah, and so I'll record it and I'll put in sound design and music, and then send it to the producers and the actors and everybody on the crew, so they can hear the movie as many times as they want before we shoot it. So they show up on set, they're like, "Oh, I get it. This is where the punchline is. This is how this is going to be performed," and then we have to raise the bar on what we've already heard.
So The Life of Thunder Road has been this short film, which had to have been a beast to have accomplished that. And then you do the podcast, and then you do the 14-day shoot. How does it not become mechanical?
No, it does. It's like, that's the dream too. It's
really?
like we have this schedule.
The emotions become like, so you can
emotionally.
how do you
performance-wise? How does it not? Yeah. So that was a big problem too for the feature in recreating the short film. The cinematographer Lowell said the same thing. Drew Daniels shot the short film, and Lowell shot the feature. And so he's like, the night before, he's like, I can't do it. I don't know. Like, it's just going to be a recreation of this thing. It's going to be an impersonation of the short film.
The night before.
And I said,
my God.
I said, I feel the same way. I was like, if I'm there, I'm like, how do I make it authentic? How do I do it? And so you do it. We had to do it 18 times. Like, it took me the first few. It was Jim doing an impression of the short film that he made already, and you can feel it sometimes. And then I did some takes where I put in dumb improv stuff. Because I knew that the audience was going to find that funny, because they were like, "Oh, there's no way that he's actually putting that in." I went off on a tangent about the girl who bites kids in our school, and it was really funny. I said, she couldn't play on the play structures; it was too dangerous. She'd always climb up to the tippy top, and she'd go right down, and it was always on her head.
Always on her head.
And then and like that was fun. But your reaction there was everybody in the church, because they're not expecting you to say that.
We've
And
seen
then
this 15 times already.
that loosened it up, and then I was like, okay, cool. I am bastardizing this thing. Fuck it, let's just do it real. And then by the end of it, I couldn't cry anymore, and I sat down with another producer of mine, Natalie Metzger, and we had a little chat, and I was crying harder than I'd ever cried in my life, and I said, let's do it, let's end this thing. And we went in, and I fucked up one take. It was a small technical thing. And then we did the last one, and it was the one that's in the movie. And it's like, I was able to get loose enough and to forget. And when you're doing it, like, think of all of the scheduling shit of like, okay, cool, I have to go home tonight and make sure that Brian gets the footage. I got to make sure that I'm not stepping too close, because then we're going to lose focus, and I can't, ruffle my shirt too much, because then microphone you're going to hear it. All of that stuff disappears after you do it enough times. And then you're the guy, and you're standing there, and you forget that stuff, and you're trying to say that you loved your mom. And on the short film was the 6th take. We shot 8, but people were laughing for 2 of them, so we had to cut them short. I was one of them. And then by the 6th one, it was like, you're exhausted, which is what that guy was after staying up all night prepping for a funeral.
And that was day 1 of the shoot, and it was really interesting watching it go from Jim Cummings into, like, by that 18th take, we had Jim Arnaud, and we had him for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you say you're not like Kubrick, but I mean, that is like the Kubrickian David Fincher method, right? Where you keep shooting it until it's no longer a performance, it just is.
Yeah. I feel like people tend to use Kubrick as this example of how far you can push your crew, and that it's okay. I never appreciated that. I love their movies. David's the same way. I mean, the opening scene in Social Network is 99 takes. It's insane. It's insane, but it's a great scene. It's a really great performance from those two. I don't know. I feel like there are ways in rehearsal, if you do it enough times in rehearsal, you don't necessarily have to do it 1,000 times on the day. It costs too much.
Right.
That's another thing. We don't have any money, so it's like we're doing this thing, and so we front load a lot of the production value in rehearsals, in Starbucks, with me walking around talking to myself for a month and a half, looking like a lunatic.
And so, getting back to the cinematography and the visual side of things, your conversations with your DP, what are those conversations? Are they referencing films that you want it to look like, or is it?
Yeah, so that's the first thing. So Lowell built a lookbook of the way of the colors and stuff that he was like the certain lenses and things to get close to the people, and then I was like, well, you should see Krisha, which is one of my favorite movies. It's a lot of dollies and zooms. And I feel like that movie moves in a way that's really beautiful and connecting to an audience. Killing of a Sacred Deer, we all went to go see together as a group. I didn't know that it was shot that way, but it was kind of perfect to be in the Alamo Drafthouse, South Lamar in Austin, and just squeezing the arm of my DP who's sitting next to me and be like, it's working! Like, zooms and dollies, they're awesome!
That was like 2 days before production.
Really?
Yeah, legitimately. It was like, cool, it's gonna work. And then... we talked about The Shining. We talk about all of these movies that use zooms effectively. Gosford Park. We talked a lot about Altman, Alfonso Cuarón, Tarkovsky. Like a lot of those movies, I talk about. You can't stop me from talking about these movies, and so my DP has been hearing me talk about them for years, and so he'd already seen all the movies that I suggested for him, and so it became shorthand of like. Coen Brothers wide angle, we would always say, of like, for the or like Haneke, like the scene in the kitchen with me and my sister, we're having the conversation, it's edited A-B, meaning like you're not hearing somebody talk and then you're seeing somebody else. Like a conventional conversation is edited. It's like somebody says something, we see the reaction shot, and then they say something, and then we see the reaction shot and they say something. It's this kind of odd structure that's formal, that feels like it's an uncomfortable scene, and Michael Haneke does that all the time. And then to pair that with like a 35 millimeter lens close to an actor where it's like relatively wide and you're in a single shot with them, that's the Coen Brothers. That's like No Country for Old Men. We talked about movies constantly, and that became the visual language of the movie. And there were times where Lowell or somebody would say, "Oh, we should do this on the movie," and like move around this guy when he's walking into the police station. I was like, that's going to be way too cool, and that's not that's not the language of the movie. The language of the movie is dollies and zooms. So if we get the camera super high up, and then we see this car drive by, a police car, that establishes that we're at the police station for that transition, and then we just zoom in on him as he's walking in, and then the guy serves him the papers, and it's like we just keep moving in on him. That's the language of this movie. We can't do it any other way. So you're kind of like, your hands are tied, and that sucks sometimes. Like the scene of me breaking the window of the car and trying to get into the car, we're like, okay,
how do you do that?
It starts out and we're driving 30 miles an hour down the road trying to pull this guy over, and it's another cop, it's Doug, and it starts out and we're tilted down so it's a police uniform, and we're thinking, the audience goes like, oh, is Jim back in the uniform? And then it tilts up and we reveal it's somebody else, it's Doug, and then you're like, why are we watching this?
Doug.
And then he gets out and moves to the front of the car, and then we hear me, and then it starts zooming in, so it's like this enormous rig of a camera for this stupid introduction of just the badge and then moving up, and then with this long lens, so we have to like pivot the camera back in the car on a dolly in the shotgun seat, take the shotgun seat out so that we can zoom into me through the windshield, and it's a beautiful shot. It's one of the most incredible shots in the movie, but we couldn't shoot it any other way. That was the only way to do it, and it's a nightmare. It's like to ask my DP to be like, hey, we got to get this shot. We got to get it before sun goes down. And he's like, I got to build this rig in the shotgun seat for the next 2 hours. Like, it's going to take that long. We had a camera team of 5 people, 4 people, something like that. Yeah, especially for that Splinter Cell where we would like break off to go and shoot one shot. It was a lot to ask, but it was fun. Everybody laughed the whole time. It was good.
And okay, well, so when you're doing 14 days and you hit a day like that, how are you mentally staying on track of executing, the vision that you've memorized?
Yeah.
Like stress. Are you totally confident because you've got the entire plan?
No. You're never confident, because you're never confident, and then as soon as they say, okay, we're good to go, the camera's ready, then it's like, okay, cool, I get to do the thing that I've been rehearsing. I get to jump in the frame and be the guy, And that's the easy part of like, I had already done all the legwork of memorizing all the stuff. I knew all of the beats, I knew all of the turns. But then having producers on set watching monitor and ensuring that it was working, so I could literally go to my best friends who are watching the monitor afterwards and go, how is that? And they go, yeah, that's gonna work. Yeah, or no, or like I don't know, that it feels too synthetic, or like that doesn't feel right. How about we do this? And then it's like, okay, cool, we'll do one like that.
And I think a lot of that in terms of like figuring out the confidence and everything like that was we are so confident about production and how that stuff goes, because there's like this overnight story, right, that Jim's this first time director. Right, yeah. But this is our goddamn 6th feature together.
Yeah, I was a producer for 6 features before doing this.
Right.
So I knew how to put the teams together and to make a movie on set. Like the cameras, getting everything together, it's second nature to the two of us. And so
we were wrapping early almost every day. It was all of that type of stuff where it was like all of that's taken care of. We have a monumental task of trying to get this really perfect and on film, but we're not going to have any problems of the stuff we could have seen coming.
Yeah,
we're going to have bandwidth if something comes up, if we need to be here longer, if we need this, that, or the other thing, because we've done all of the diligence to make sure that none of the problems we could have foreseen are occupying the day.
So what's the nightmare scenario on this film? What was
rain?
Rain.
That's always the nightmare. Like any of the stuff that you have no control over. Me cutting my arm on the window and then super gluing it shut. That was a quick one, but that could have been a serious one. And that's like there were times where
it's only an artery.
Yeah, I was in cowboy boots and then sprinting across to go and get something because something had to get. And they were like, "No, don't run. It's wet. Like you do not." So like everybody was very conscious of, you can't break an arm on this thing, and so that was difficult. That was the first time where like my body, I was actually in a precious material. Yeah.
Years ago, Jim and I used to produce hand-drawn animation under the name Ornana with our good friend Danny Madden, who's sound designed and creative directed Thunder Road, and we would always joke with him like when he was about to do something stupid, like not with your animating hand. Like, you can hurt yourself. I don't care about you, but like we need that hand for another 2 months.
Yeah, that's the weird thing of like you build up all this stuff. You're like, oh, it's gonna be great. We're gonna do it. We just like the movie is fun. You know, we'll do a short film. Like it's gonna be just like that. And then it's 14 days, and you're in Austin, and then you are the guy who's doing the thing, and it's like. It was the first time everybody's like, does Jim have enough blood sugar? Like, does he have a Red Bull? Like, it was a very strange diva thing of like, it felt like that to me. And if I wasn't constantly humiliating myself on film, I would feel worse about it. But from day one, we said, this might be the most important thing that I do with my life. And we have to watch this guy go through hell. It's a redemption story. It's a comedy of the story of Job. How do we actually continue to give me spinning plates and just pile on more shit for this guy to go through? And we did, and they did.
How many turds can we put in the toilet bowl? On the way down as he swirls. Yeah.
So that idea there, that this might be the most important thing that I do with my life. This, I mean, your entire creative experience has been building to Thunder Road. That's intense.
So it's been making the rounds. It's been in a few theaters. What's it like the first time you go sit in a theater and watch it with a crowd? Can you do that?
Yeah, I sneak in. It's great. Like I snuck in for the first screening. I always try to go in at around 58 minutes because it's right before the parking lot scene and me getting fired, and it's just so much fun to be there with an audience where it's like there's like big Will Ferrell style comedy shouting in that scene, and then it's also this like endearing tragedy of watching this guy take his uniform off and become a human being and a scary armed gunman, and it's like this. Yeah. Comedy, intense comedy, and so I always sneak in to watch that, and it's great to hear people laugh as the setup. Like, it's this wonderful roller coaster where it's like I get out of the car, I fall out of the car, crawl up, slap Niken. It's abrasive. I get tackled, my pants get ripped. Everybody's laughing at the stuff. Like, you can see my junk in tighty whities in this like hole in my crotch, and he's shouting. He says that he's stuffed. I was. It was freezing.
It was freezing.
But I'm saying, I say, you ripped my pants. These are my favorite fucking pants. You ruined my life. And it's like one of my favorite like just transitions comedically in the movie. And to hear people laugh at that, and then he says like, who dances at a funeral? And I say, in my culture we do that. It becomes this like racial joke kind of thing. Like, he's clueless, and then the gun, the reveal, and the audience is like, oh fuck, like
right,
this poor guy. Like, I know it's great. It's a great little like reveal just by picking what's in the frame. Like, it goes into close up. You don't realize what's outside of it. He doesn't realize what's outside of it. You're with him when he realizes, and he's later to the party than the audience is. Of like, it's fine, all of that stuff. It's great fun, and then it goes into that same familiar zoom in, like past the crowd, in on this guy, which you've already seen in the opening of the movie of the funeral, and you're like, oh, we're in for it now. This poor guy, something's gonna happen, and he has the meltdown, and it goes to 11, and it's like this Jake Gyllenhaal, Leonardo DiCaprio style shouting thing with a butt joke at the end. It is great to be with an audience in that moment where you're watching this live wire. You're watching this this meltdown, and I love that. All my movies are about meltdowns. They're all about usually public meltdowns, and I feel like that's just objectively interesting. And to see it with an American crowd too. It screened in France before, and in Ukraine, and a bunch of other countries. But to have it be Southerners who have a deep understanding of the language and Dillards and like small jokes like that are local, I think it's
that's
best
what's
crowd.
been so rewarding about this little thing that we're doing. I guess we're releasing a movie theatrically across the country, but like, we did a hometown screening 3 miles from my high school in Raleigh at the Alamo Drafthouse there. The next day we got up to Charlottesville to do it there. Then we were in Northern Virginia, and now we're here in Winchester, and it's like getting to see this and meet these audiences that are just like us. They're these like Southern folks who want something about the South that isn't just like this
caricature.
It's not Deliverance, and Deliverance is my favorite book in the world, but that's like the image we have of the South in cinema.
Just like Jody Hill, like
you can't get away from it.
Yeah,
it's such an easy go-to like voice reference or visual reference or character reference.
Dan McBride. It's strange. There aren't many actors that have Southern accents. I think that's another thing. Like, you're usually stripped of that. Well, Sam Shepard. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, you can count them on a hand.
What's the dude in Tokyo Drift whose name it is? Who's the
main
guy?
The guy from
American
Alabama. Gothic. The Alabama guy.
I can't
there we
think,
go.
Mr. Alabama.
Right, but he's got a strong Alabamian accent, and like when I saw Tokyo Drift, I thought that his accent was a put on.
Right.
And I fucking hated that movie because I was like, well, I don't want to be a goddamn punchline. Like, I already, But then I find out, like, no, this is his accent. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's keeping it in the movie. And I think that's
a strange thing. Like, I really do. I grew up, loving the blue collar comedy guys, but like that's kind of the forward facing image of comedy in the American South. And like, it's rare. I was talking to Andre Hyland about that. He has a Southern character that he plays, and it's like it's rare to find somebody where there's any humanity. Like, the comedy has no humanity. It doesn't feel like, and.
But that's an essential element of the comedy, and that's
Agreed.
an essential element. Like, you can
that's what
see,
connects you to the character.
Exactly, and if you don't have that, what's the point?
I will argue that while we just talked about the parking lot scene, the scene that resonates with me the strongest is the scene with you and Megan Blair at the school.
Holy shit!
Only because I feel like we got a strongest connection between you and your daughter in that scene, with things that were unsaid.
Yeah.
From the beginning, how laughter was there, to the end of holding that desk, which was eerily similar to holding the gun at the end of that one scene. And so our audience, that was the scene that we were laughing hysterically at the beginning, and then by the end we were like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And that was, that's a scene that stands out for me right there.
Yeah. So that was like an 8-hour shoot. That was like I rehearsed with. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We got some food delivered. That's what's going on in the background right there.
Sure.
Thank you. This is amazing.
Speaking of the South, welcome to our
this is amazing. Breakfast burrito.
Yeah.
I'm going to be eating chips throughout
Tater
this time.
tots and bacon.
Yeah.
So no,
That's
to answer your question.
I don't even know if I had a question. I was just sort of saying, like, that's a
Yeah.
scene
That's
a great
that stands
scene.
out
Yeah.
right there.
So public education is always the it's a topic for me. I think it's a very difficult thing, and we have a good one in this country. It's George Carlin says that. He says your education is never going to get better. They don't want smart people. They want to put you through a system.
Yep.
And so yeah, I'd be happy with what you got, is what he says. And so I've grown to be happy with what I got. We made a short film called Parent Teacher. It's about the struggles of current modern public education and the stress of teachers against parents.
Free on Vimeo.
Free on Vimeo. It's free on Vimeo right now. But no, that scene with Macon Blair is this insight into somebody who knows his daughter a different way, and for two grown men to have a conversation about the well-being of a child in the setting of a school, it's fucking heartbreaking. And it's also like it's this confession of this cowboy coming in to try and connect with his daughter in a different way, and he needs clues from this guy, and it's funny and it's tragic, and he has a meltdown. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's very episodic in that part of the movie where it's like it stands alone as this thing, and you don't really know why you're watching it until it's important.
Well, for me, it was connecting to the daughter, or your daughter, in that sort of film as a whole, because you're going in because she's had outlashes, she's been sort of yelling and screaming and sort of like
right,
and to have it end on a moment where you are almost identically why you're there to begin with was a true like family bonding moment, watching it and that sort of thing as well. I don't know, that scene, and then it's great foreshadowing for the scene then in the parking lot scene. I mean, that sort of is helping us get from point A to point B.
I think that's a funny thing. So a lot of people pick on that of just like, oh, his like inner rage, this Jim guy, and like he has this rage that's behind him, and like he's and I understand that a lot of Americans have that. A lot of American men have that in the South. But I never thought of it as that. I thought of it as like comedy. Of like I always saw it as this is the most ridiculous thing you could do in a parent-teacher conference: pick up a desk and threaten to hum it across the room.
Because you can't hit the issue on the head. You can't dive into the thing that you need to be doing yet.
Agreed. So like that became
a
wedge into the point that we were trying to make of like, if we can show him being a buffoon, it can encourage other people to say, oh, I'm not going to be that bad. Like, or like, oh wow, it is tragic to see him try to connect to his daughter.
So we in Winchester love dissecting what we watch on screen.
Cool.
So you'll get some theories coming left and right day after the screen.
And he knows a few of them already.
During that scene in the schoolroom, where you pick up the desk and don't realize that it's even your daughter's desk. Everyone was like, "You can't read."
Well,
and so there's this huge element to it right there that sort of ties it well with the whole sort of thing. And so we're hunting for clues about you throughout these sort of scenes, because
that's really interesting.
We're only given
I like that.
Again, these small sort of bits. And so our audience after the screening, after our first screening last weekend, was like, did you see this? Did you catch on this? Did you find this? Through it all. Cool. Because I think we're trying to connect. We're all trying to connect with something in that film. But in the same sense, we're trying to find the best version of you in that film. Like, who is this guy?
And burying all of these important things into a single word, where you're able to give this like bigger backstory there.
Well, that's because we don't have that story to begin with.
No, you're thrown into it.
Hunting for it.
You become the detective.
I don't want to talk about the ending of the movie on this podcast, but you're building to another major familial reveal that on first watch was a big surprise to me.
Talking about the overdose.
Yeah.
Cool. So we always say that it's always a surprise when somebody overdoses.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's true.
Fuck, man.
Because your experience with that person is one thing, and you really don't know what's going on in that character's life, because she's the antagonist to to the character.
That was a big one. We talked about that, of like how much do we convey to maintain the shock of that moment. And it is shocking, and some people are like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming," and then that's bad storytelling or something like that. I'm like, "All right, well, fuck you." There could be surprises in movies. But also, there are two moments in the movie where he says it. He says to the judge, he says, her problems with everything, and then he's talking to his sister later, and he says, talking with her problems. I've been forth with you about all that. It's
right.
Like,
but I don't want to get dirty.
When people have a drug problem in the family, they don't talk about it. And so it's a difficult thing. Like, how do you do that uncheesily or, like, not on the nose? We introduced her character in her own scene, handheld. That's one of the only handheld scenes in the movie. And it is rough handheld. And the way we make her look, it's, like, distant and sad and kind of, she's cold all the time. It's, like, it's what that looks like. And I don't know. I felt like, you're right. It's only on the second viewing where you're like, "Oh, I get it now."
Almost everything that we shot that didn't make it in the movie that we cut out was involving this kind of like over-explaining of that. That we had these other clues sitting in different places. In the phone call, we have a version where she opens it with a beer bottle.
Yeah.
And there's a few of these different context moments, and it felt so false that this is something that just like it goes and it goes quickly, and you think that this is a stage or a moment, and it's the same thing with the mother. Like, she has this knee surgery and she never gets back to being herself. She loses her studio and all of this stuff because had to teach from a chair, because that's what happens. You suddenly have OxyContin prescribed to you for years. And how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm liking this movie more just from this conversation now.
Kendall, the girl who plays my daughter, said that. She said that to her mom, and her mom, Katie Farr, who's always on set hanging out. She's amazing. It's amazing. They say when you cast a child, you're casting the parent. And it's true. It's true. She's great. The whole family's amazing. Her dad, Brian, as well. Her brother, Caleb, is in the movie as well. He plays one of the shithead students. He's really good. But no, she said Kendall was talking to me last night. She has this theory about how the grandmother died, and that she had a knee surgery and then was prescribed drugs. And I said, Kendall said that to you. I was like, how does she know this? Like, how is she so profoundly beyond her years? Yeah, it's shocking. I was
but that scene also has the best line of the film, in my opinion, which is this is for my daughter. I'm going to mess it up in the podcast, obviously, but and this is for my future.
This is for Crystal's future husband and my mom.
Yeah, I mean that resonated with our audience crazy afterwards.
Crushed.
What's crazy is it is one of the most profound insults of him saying this thing where he has the presence of mind to realize that this guy, this future husband, is going to have to go through hell.
Yeah.
Dealing with this, it's so brutal.
Yeah.
And then he slaps a corpse, and it's this shocking and also kind of funny and kind of weird moment. And so it's kind of buried inside of that. You don't realize it, but it is probably one of the sadder lines of the film.
Well, it's that this stuff is cyclical,
and it also says that the mom didn't like her. And for good reason, probably.
And even to the end, we were still getting more glimpses into your world. Your character's world up to the very end.
So this whole experience of Thunder Road, of, I hate to use the cliche, but the roller coaster of emotions that you go through, sentence to sentence, scene to scene, impossible to sell, from a marketing standpoint.
Pixar's doing it great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. Like I leave the cinema. I leave Inside Out, and I've been laughing and crying for the last 90 minutes, and it's fun, and it's a kids movie. And it's crazy to think that if you're making a drama in America, you can't make the audience cry. And it's stupid. And it's like, no, we go to the cinema to have that feeling, to see life portrayed in moving images, and we're supposed to feel moved. It's supposed to move us. It's a challenge. Now it's like now we like to not blend in. You have to do that, but it's crazy that all these movies come out as a dramedy and you don't feel anything, and as a comedy you don't actually laugh.
Well, a film has to be one thing. You're making a drama. You're making a comedy. Maybe we'll allow a dramedy, but that dramedy tends to be more comedy than drama. You know,
Or they cast big famous comedic actors, and it's like, okay, well, it doesn't really work because I remember him from this
big
other
famous
movie.
comedic actor does big famous comedic actor shtick in new script,
and it's also kind of dramatic sometimes.
Jim's the most famous person I know, so that's what I try to do. We'll see.
Yeah.
So can I ask about the marketing of this film?
Yeah. Let's
Here we
talk
go.
about that.
Because
well, that's what I'm saying. Like how do you do it?
The trailer of this film.
We try and get on as many podcasts with shitheads as possible.
Success.
It also gets us free lunch. So.
The audience that came and saw it during last weekend and then saw the trailer, because I think the trailer came after our last weekend sort of thing, was like, these are two different movies that we're watching.
Okay.
Here. They had this reaction because they were
Good.
missing the
comedy
humorous elements.
There's
so talk to me about what went into that.
That was a big battle. I don't know how to market a movie.
Sure.
I'm a child. I don't know. But to me, the thing that really resonates with audiences is the drama. They'll like when you make a comedy, you don't get as many hugs in the lobby of a movie theater. But when we premiered the movie, some people had to leave crying because they couldn't be seen in public like that. Yeah. And I was like, this is a deeper thing than a comedy. And I think that's the thing, like in America right now and around the world, it's inappropriate to be unhappy or to talk about depression or to talk about anything really that has any meaning to it. So sometimes the best wedge to connect to somebody is to do that, is to show off this thing. And I think that there are enough jokes in the trailer to make people laugh. That we have I brought you breakfast, and thank you so much for doing that, Jerry. And he changes direction. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie. Such a non sequitur in the middle. He's trying to make a point and then he has to go back. But it's also a tragic thing. He's living in his car for 3 weeks, and then this nice guy brings him breakfast. The police station keeps it private from everybody. It's so beautiful. But no, I don't know. I listened to the Aphex Twin song all through high school and college, and I was like, it has this nostalgia, this like, it's so big, and it's like that's going to add the grandeur to this thing. And I started cutting it stupidly without the rights, and I was like, this could be the big thing. This could be the cool music that you put into a movie trailer. And we reached out and got in touch with Warp Records, who are really lovely. And then Richard saw the trailer and approved and said that we could use it. And I don't know, it was from a laptop. It was from our little offices in California.
And the other thing was, like, we could figure out, like, we know how to angle this towards the comedy crowd.
Right.
In terms of, like, that's something that we can be doing with a 6-second GIF.
Right.
That we can toss up on Imgur or Reddit. Like, there's all of these different ways that we can be hitting that aspect, and that can very quickly translate. Whereas you can't go through and tell the story of a drama or how impactful something's going to be in 6 or 10 or 20 seconds. So we felt like we could hit that comedy audience in a different way, where this like bigger piece that we had with the trailer, we wanted to really cater that towards this drama audience.
And so our theory would be like this. So Alamo Winchester's theories continue with this film.
Conspiracy theories, here we go.
Yeah, that's right. And so our theory is that, and I'm going to talk about this as we enter the film today, is that this is a film that requires audiences to continue to talk about it afterwards.
For sure.
And the trailer, much different than the movie, then requires, in my opinion, and one of my opinions, requires the audiences then to go out and sell it to their friends and family a little bit more. And therefore, it's not just a trailer on screen, but you have a trailer as well as the guy next to you saying, you have to see this movie. And it's because the parts then are in that trailer that maybe resonate with other people. You're like, oh my gosh, I ran into that with my dad. I sent my dad the trailer, and my dad was like, I don't know if I'm in the mood.
It looks depressing. Absolutely.
And then I had to sort of be like, you're coming to the screening. It's the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's a 2-part element to that.
So that's the thing.
You're missing with other elements.
Like the thing. I feel like comedy it's everywhere, and I feel like the thing that connects to somebody is poignance or grandeur, and like you get both of those from showing a public meltdown of somebody being like, fuck it, I'm done, I'm out. Like that's what the climax is. And so we had to have that, and I like the idea of having the backbone of it being this anthem that people can identify with. But if it was just the comedic versions of it, like it would be a Mike Judge movie. It would be
Right.
Extract or something like that, and it could be blend into the rest of the trailers that week. So we were on the front page of Reddit 2 days ago with the trailer. People shared it, which is incredible. We're very lucky, but like that's the main takeaway that people have is like it's poignant. It's something that is authentic, and the comedy. It's a very funny movie for Americans, for anybody who speaks English. It's a very it's a big comedy. There are big laughs in the movie, but you draw them in with something that's going to change their lives.
Yeah.
Like that's what Thunder Road is. Like Thunder Road is this fun anthem sung by the stadium rocker, but really it's trying to convert people who are unhappy to change their lives for the better. That guy was so inspired by Roy Orbison, who would just sing songs for sad and lonely people, and that sharing of being sad and lonely is the thing that drew people in. Yeah. And to say, okay, cool, this guy, he's been through worse than I have, and I'll be fine.
But I also think, for me to go see a movie in today's market, and for a film like Thunder Road to survive past whatever timeline that you guys may have in your head and go further than that, it requires the audience to be
100%.
invested into it. And what I think is happening, and what I saw with Lost Weekend and to our sold out screening today, is that people are like, yes, like I want my friends and my neighbors and my relatives to know about this movie and moving forward. And you share that trailer, agree or disagree with the way that it's put together, the conversation is going to continue moving forward. And I think that's going to get more people talking about Thunder Road a year from now, 2 years from now, 4 years from now,
this is
versus the trailer of any of these movies that are surrounding you right now.
I think the other thing is like when people go into it, we market it as a comedy. So it is it is a comedy.
It is.
Which is crazy. He looks up like, is it?
His brother doesn't think so.
I laugh at the movie, but I don't think I would walk away and say like, this is a comedy.
Would I put it in the Blockbuster in the Sky in the comedy section? I don't know.
So to me, people who are approaching it as a comedy will be very surprised to be crying throughout.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
But then people who approach it as a drama or like this poignant, like Al Pacino style shouting match, who see the trailer will be even more surprised to laugh out loud throughout the movie.
And more grateful. But I think you're absolutely right about like we have $35,000 to do an entire marketing campaign for this film. So our strategy has to be this slow burn. It has to be this reliance on the audience. And that's something that we've thought the whole time of like, let's just start.
Yeah.
Let's just get this out there and on the road and in front of people. Let's be in Winchester. Let's be in Raleigh. Let's be in these places and talking to an audience. And actually having a relationship with these with the audience members, because we need that long life.
Yeah.
We need this to be something, and we've already seen it with the way that the marketing has just kind of suddenly hit. We didn't put any marketing into this until last week.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't, because we have to get everything into this small window. And within 2 days, there were a couple 100,000 extra views, and there were all of these different things happening. And we have bookings coming in now for December in Joplin, Missouri. Yeah. And that's going to be the story of the Thunder Road release. Is it's going to be like, we're so grateful to have Alamo as this place that can kind of introduce us to an audience, to a core group of people, and start that conversation more nationally. But yeah, I want to be in 250 theaters for Mother's Day next year and do a special Q&A for that.
Mother's Day screen,
Let's
brutal.
Get audiences together for this. We're excited about the internet release and everything like that. But in reality, what is so special to me about this film is when you do get to sit next to somebody and they're laughing and you're crying, and in the next 12 seconds you're laughing and they're crying. And it's like there's so much that you personally can be bringing and investing into the movie. And we have this idea, everybody talks about film as a language, right? But we always describe that from the filmmaker's perspective, that this is our way to communicate with other people. But I think that's bullshit. I think the power of film is it as a language for audience members. What are the things that you're sharing What can they communicate about you, your values, your questions? And so that, I hope, that would be our dream for Thunder Road is, yes, this belongs to the audience, and they're the most important part of it.
This is a movie that you need to see in a theater. There's not a question. With an audience, sitting at home on a Netflix platform, and hopefully trying to.
But invite your friends over if you're doing it at home.
This is an Andy thing. We could go on forever about the Netflix versus theater conversation, but
I'm saying that. How many people are gathering after a Netflix screening and talking about these?
Sure, of course, I'm with you, Andy.
But have a living room full at the very least.
So Andy, so I think specifically, you're right. There is something to having a deeply moving experience with fellow members of our species in a dark room, and I think specifically for this film, it ends in a theater. It's him going to the ballet, and then he's watching this thing. You don't really know. It's this long shot of dancers on the stage, and you're like, why am I watching this? And then it cuts to him, and it's the last shot of the movie, and you realize why, like, it's all been building up to this one moment where he finally is a good dad. He's done something right, and then he's sending his daughter down this path of being a dancer, like his mom was. And it's so deeply moving, and he's in a crowd surrounded by people, and he's crying immensely, and a lot of the cinema goers are crying immensely with this guy. It's this weird mirror where you're actually watching somebody in a group of people privately crying, and it's a strange thing. This connection that you have with the person. There is a real magic specifically with this film to see it in the movie theater. And
by the end of the film,
thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You watch the movie, and I feel like you want to fight for the movie. You want to share the film, as Andy's saying. Sure. Like it's one of those movies for me where it's like, okay, well, this is going into my personal movie collection. This is in my heart. Like, this is my movie now. Whereas, like, I go see Venom this weekend also.
And you're like, I saw it.
I saw Venom. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the next movie. Thunder Road for me was a deeply moving experience. I was so grateful that we were able to see it at the Lost Weekend, and that for the most part we come out, we all have shared a similar emotional experience, and now we're in Team Thunder Road.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what,
it's not a cult.
Yeah, talk about this.
It is.
That's what all cultists say.
I'll tell you this right now. We played Thunder Road as our 29th film out of 31 films. And if you think of the average person going through 29 films leading up to this and then seeing Thunder Road, the reaction that we had post this movie was like we had watched it as film one.
Andy, that's where we started the conversation was...
Yeah, you'd imagine to be lobotomized by the end of it. Yeah, that's great.
We knew going into it that this was the perfect place.
When you go to festivals and you hear the experience of like... You're seeing one movie after another movie and after another movie, and we have to write reviews for them or whatever. And you're like, oh, did that happen in that film or did that happen in that film? But then suddenly you're on film number 37 and it's Thunder Road. And you go, oh, shit, no. It doesn't matter how many movies you watched before, how many movies you're going to watch after. Once you experience a unique thing, it's going to stay with you.
When you see a Heart movie for the first time, it doesn't matter if you've seen 30 movies before that Heart movie, right in a row. That Heart movie connects with you, and it's just fucking there. Like it's like you feel that.
We've been talking for over an hour now, and I just want to say thank you to you both. We really, really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to see the film again here with Film Club.
Well, so I want to. So I get right. So hang on.
Do your, I wasn't setting up. You saying shut up, Brad. Shut up.
I'm not ending this.
I haven't done my thing yet. No. I got sandwiches and chips still to eat. You go, Billy.
So I want to say one thing, and then I want to put a question to you guys that I like to put to everybody. The first thing I want to say is so at the start of this podcast, right? You clocked that Florida is my hometown, and so I want to share an experience that I had with you in the aftermath of that. So I'm at work. All of this is going on. I'm very conscious of the fact that there's disaster footage on the television that's doing this. And so I go out to my break room to kind of get away from the people that I work with because I'm having an emotional thing, and they don't know that I'm from Florida, really. They don't understand what that means or the implication of that. So I step away to kind of experience this thing on my own, and I go to this break room, and the break room has footage of the Hurricane Michael's aftermath on Mexico Beach, which is like, that's my childhood.
Some pictures,
It's my childhood. And so I'm having this very profoundly emotional moment that I don't know what to do with, and I don't have a context for experiencing it personally at this level. And it's very strange to have an ongoing relationship with this place and not be living there immediately, but have family and friends and so much loss and devastation. And to have the banality of workplace conversation intrude on that, because they don't know that I'm going through this thing, and they're, how about that Wednesday? You know what I mean? Like, it's hump day, and they don't know. And I had a very surreal realization where I could feel my face contorting through a series of emotions, and you know, so you have this thing, your brain thinks strange things. I immediately flash back to the performance of yours with the eulogy, where you are clearly struggling with, like, you're portraying that so clearly about the struggle with conflicting emotions and trying to be present in place and do all of those things. And so it was just a thought that passed, but it kind of took me out of the moment and you know, allowed me to kind of get through that. But when we say at the beginning of this podcast that the emotion and the performance that you put into this is so authentic and so poignant and so immediate and connectable in experience, I mean that sincerely. I think it must be true in my head, because why would I flash to that thought? Like, what a silly thing to flash to of a guy's face contorting in a comedy. But I related exactly in that way.
That's the point. That's why we made the thing. I mean, like, one of my favorite movies is Inside Out, and that if you watch that film, you are then trained to think about your emotions as being these things that you do not control, and so that if you are angry, you can go, oh yeah, that's the little thing in my head that's shouting.
Right.
It's a great lesson. And it's you'd be surprised how many text messages I get from people saying, and it's usually close friends, but then some absolute strangers, and they say, I went to a funeral today, and I couldn't, like, I thought about that guy, and I thought, if I don't do it as bad as that guy, I'll be fine. That's the point. That's why we made it.
So I did not do a performative dance of Thunder Road in my break room at my workplace. But
no, was it born to run?
That's the right question. So I wanted to share that, and
thank you.
The question that I would like to ask you guys is, you know, Brad and I and In the Mouth of Darkness and through Film School Rejects, we have a lot of opportunities to interview independent filmmakers. And I think the one commonality amongst all of them, no matter how they get their funding, where they go with the film, what the type of genre it is, it's very, very hard to make a movie. And if it's very, very hard to make a movie, it's practically fucking impossible to make an independent film. And it can make you feel quite lowly sometimes in the course of making your film. And what I would like to know is, when you guys encountered a lowly moment, what is the moment in your career that you flash back to and say, that's my rock, that's the thing that I look back to buoy me to make this feel all worthwhile?
Maybe it's this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ben and I... Ben and I produced movies for a long time, and we had about 6 years of lowly moments, and buoying each other all the time. I remember being like, we're doing hand-drawn animation. It would take 11 months to do 10 minutes of footage or something, and it was brutal. And we were trying to understand the landscape, and everything felt like this club that we weren't in, filmmaking success, whatever that was. And then we would have these long walks to my car, and it just became, Ben would say stuff like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, we'll figure it out tomorrow. And that was always the thing that kept me grounded of, I'm showing up, I'm still going to do this thing. I'm not good at anything else. You know, I went to school for this. I'm terrible at math. I can't keep a straight face in a board meeting. I don't know what I would do. And we just were persistent. And then I think of seeing Krisha for the first time in cinema at South by Southwest, and then spending the next 2 hours walking around a river crying, and then befriending that team, and thinking and driving back with Ben after seeing that film. We drove from Texas to Los Angeles, and we just talked about that movie and how it's going to start this renaissance. They were right. You know, they make something in their backyard for not much money, this backyard Pixar movement, and just starting something, and to be the change that you want to see. I don't know. We were successful. I think that's another scary thing. For a long time, we weren't, and so it was very easy to be down and out, and and to just be self-loathing and to not know why you're unhappy, and if only you could make something good, if only you could connect. And it takes a long education on the internet and in schooling and with friends to actually make something that's gonna be good. It took us 10 years.
And I think it's exactly what Jim said, because our solace wasn't in something that had happened. It was always in that idea of like, let's go to work tomorrow. And that was going to be this thing that saved us.
Yeah. Well, Jim, Ben,
answers,
thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. We really, really appreciate it. And on to the next tour, you know. Congratulations.
So where can people find you on the social medias? Where aren't you?
On the interwebs. Where are you, Jimmy?
We're on Twitter and on Reddit and on Instagram. And Ben is Ornana Films, and I am Jimmy C. That's me.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Much appreciated.
Take care, y'all.
And like that, we're back in the Dork Cave.
Like magic.
Magic! So we weren't lying. That was a really great conversation.
I love those guys and that chat. And honestly, I think that the lunch, like the brunch format for the conversation came together very well.
Honestly, I would be curious from our listeners. Tweet us, add us, email us. Let us know if you like the lunch chat interview situation. If you don't, also let us know, and we will adapt to that. But yeah, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I think Jim Cummings is a genius. I think Thunder Road is an amazing cinematic experience. And there are few films like it. Yes, there are Pixar movies similar in tone. But live action wise, you know, it's just something. It's not a cinematic landscape that we travel to often.
I think that a lot of times in conversations like these, I go into them, you know, very much appreciating what they're doing, and I come out of them still very much appreciating what they're doing. And my favorite part of this conversation was simply that Jim and Ben were able to articulate the craft that they put into this thing that so emotionally devastated me when I watched it the first time.
14 days.
So fucking crazy.
What?
That like production is sickeningly good.
But what I took away was, yes, it was 14 shooting days, but it was also a short film. Yeah. It was a podcast that he had put together.
It's so awesome.
It was weeks and weeks of pre-production.
Yeah.
And then a 14-day shoot.
Right.
A machine.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So, all right. That was our Jim Cummings, Ben Wiesner interview. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Let us know. Rate us 5 stars only on our iTunes. We would really appreciate that from you. Follow us at Facebook, ItModcast. Follow us at ItModcast on Twitter. Follow the fellow dorks who weren't able to be on this episode. Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, at Darren Smith. No. At the Disco Dork on all social medias. Follow Lisa Gullickson, the Wife Dork, at Sidewalk Siren. Follow Brian Young, the Turtle Dork, at the Turtle Dork. And Indie Dork, Billy, where can we follow you?
You can find me at WB Das on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can follow me on all social medias at Mouth Dork. So guys, until next time, take care.